be torture.
There you go.
Okay. So like I was saying, there's information everywhere, and depending on what kind of information you want, that will often dictate where you need to look for it. So academic information in the university library, sometimes a piece of information might be like a social media post. It could be Instagram or Twitter, or in this part of the world, Facebook. So that's kind of an initial question to ask when you're doing research. And then also keeping in mind that research is not linear. It's not from A to B to C and you're done, and it's all very neat and tidy and tranquil. It's really kind of the opposite of that. It's messy, it's iterative, which means you sort of start here, you iterate or you express an idea, which is often a search term, and you do your search, and then that doesn't really often work out the way we hoped it would at first. And so then we kind of tweak it, we tinker with it a little bit, we go back, we reiterate, we try it again. And then, oh, we get better results. And then those results often get better results. Sometimes we have to go back, or we think of something else we want to throw in there. And so it's this very messy, but in a fruitful sort of way. And so if you feel at some point frustrated, or you feel like I'm not finding anything, don't worry. That's very natural. That's very typical. And it happens to all of us, even people with PhDs who've been teaching, as they embark on a new research project, they have to kind of start from scratch. Like, yeah, they have a lot they already know, but then the whole point of what we do is learning. And being part of this scholarly conversation, which is where you all are, and when you go to grad school, even more, really finding out what the conversation is and then contributing your own voice to it. So that's the path that, we academics would like to see other people come along with us on. So that's kind of like, that's what's in my brain. That's the framing. But I'll get down to some of the mechanics, which is some library resources that I think could be useful for you. So I'm going to share my screen, assuming I can click all the right buttons. Okay, and you don't need that. Okay, so you should all be seeing the university library website now. And the URL is up here. So it's pretty easy to remember, but also I think everybody just does a Google search, and that's fine. If you search for SDSU library, that's the first result you get. And there's just a lot. So we are a university of around almost 36,000 students, I think now, between San Diego and Calexico campuses. And everything that is in the university library is accessible to SDSU IB students. So if you see like a physical printed book that's at San Diego and you want to read it, you can request it and have it brought here, and we'll let you know when it's here. You come pick it up, check it out. But all the electronic resources, all the like ebooks, articles, all that good stuff, streaming media, it's for all SDSU students. So that means you as well. And the website is kind of your way to get to those things. So there's a lot here. I'm going to try to focus on just a couple of things. And the main thing is this black box here. And you'll see it's got these little tabs. So this is the main search box, and probably most of you have used it. You'll see something called OneSearch. OneSearch is a brand name. It's the name of the software platform that we subscribe to, and that we put all of our records and data in. So every book has to have like its own little, have you seen pictures of those little cards they used to have in drawers? So imagine that electronically, right? Imagine every single item that goes in here has to have a set of identifying data, and it has to go into here, and that's what's called a big database. But OneSearch is this particular set of tools that we have to search those things. And it's also called OneSearch because even though there's books, there's ebooks, there's articles, there are databases, OneSearch should be looking, searching across all of those. So if you do a search for economics and Brazil, and you pop it into one search, you'll get results of books, of articles, of things that are in other databases, but that are connected to this. So that's why it's called one search. And I'm going to show you in a sec. And then these here are tabs. Tabs, no, they're filters. They look like tabs, but they function as filters. So if you only want articles, you can start here, and let's say you were instructed to find peer-reviewed articles, you would click this, and then you would run your search. You can also search for a specific database. If your professor says, go look for, what's it called? Now I can't remember, but go look for a statistical database. And you go, okay. So you come in here, and it will search our list of databases. Yes, but I think what I want to show you first is kind of the main search result page. And also I want to show you research guides. Remind me to come back to research guides. Okay, so one search is here, and probably you've done this, so I'll try to remember to go fast. But let's say you're looking for Brazil, and what should we look for? Should we do a big one? Do like a big broad search. When you're developing keywords, you know, you'll see this pretty quickly, that a search like this is so broad, you're going to get a lot of results. In fact, 39,070 of them. So we don't expect you to deal with all of those. You know, there are ways, you know, what about the economy? What about Brazil? Where in Brazil? Who? So I might ask you some of these questions to help you develop your keywords. But you can also use filters right away to say, I only want certain kinds of things, or I don't really want it to have been published in 1884. Or maybe you do. Maybe you're doing a project on like the historical view of Brazil's economy. So, you know, if you wanted to do that, you would just select one of these and one of these, and maybe. And book chapters are very handy. So the great thing about ebooks is, you know, everything goes in there in pieces. So you can pull out just the one chapter of a book. You don't have to read the whole thing. So then you would apply your filters, and that should cut it down a little bit. Yeah, quite like in half. You'll still get a lot, and you can also lock these filters if you need to. That's a really useful thing if you're kind of like figuring out what your search is going to be. I really, you know, because now I want to add something, but I don't want to go back to when I had 40,000. And, you know, we'll just say, that's probably not a great term, but so now I'm down to 511, which is much more manageable. You get them in groups of 10, and then there's another page. So that's, you know, that's kind of like basic search mechanics, but kind of also shows how you can tinker with things. And then what you're looking at here is a list of individual items. If you click into each one, then you get some more specific information. But there's lots of information that you're getting already here, like it's an article, as opposed to a book. And this is its title. This is its author. This is the journal that it was published in, the year, the volume, all that good stuff. And then you'll often get a little snippet to just kind of get an idea of what it's about, and then your access options. And here it's peer reviewed because I asked for that. So when you go into one of those, you may see more than one access option. And you may think, which one do I use? As long as they cover the date range of your article, you can use any of them. We subscribe to so many databases that there is some overlap for some things. But this one was published in 2013, so I would want to make sure that, and all of these cover it, yeah, that I'd be able to access it. I will tell you, having used this resource, there are a few databases that when you get there, you then have to type the search back in, which is kind of annoying. But that's just how some of them work. Some of these other ones don't do that as much. And then there should be a summary. So summaries are always very handy for multiple things, obviously to evaluate if this item is going to be useful for your project. Also to find keywords, like maybe it's sort of what you're looking for, but not really, and you're trying to figure out why. Well, maybe it's that the people having this conversation are using other terms to describe the phenomena, right? So then you can kind of skim through the summary, and it will usually give you some of those keywords that they're thinking of, like underinvestment. That's interesting. You know, remember when I said, what about Brazil? What about the economy? Well, the secondary education, I want to know about that. And how does that impact, you know, people and the economy and all that good stuff. And then this is like librarian stuff. You probably don't have to worry about that. Okay. So that's a basic search, and that's your search results, filters that you can lock. You can also save things. You have these little pins, and then it will ask you to sign in, which is going to be up here in the right-hand corner. So if you're sort of going through lots and lots of results and looking at a few things that look good, but you're not quite ready to read them, you can save them and come back to them later. And you can also save your search string if you come up with a really good one. So I often will show that to people who are kind of a little farther along in their academic career, because you might be doing bigger, longer projects, and being able to sort of save and organize some of your research is really helpful. Once you save something, it will be up here. I have to keep moving my little Zoom pictures of people. They're always right where I need to be clicking. So you can look in your saved items and see right here. I have very eclectic saved items because I use this a lot when I'm teaching, and I'm easily distracted. So you'll see them in here, and you can save your searches. And I think, if I remember correctly, yes, you can set up alerts. If you create a search with certain keywords and then something gets added to the catalog that has those same keywords, it should send you an alert. And I say should because I haven't actually tried it, so I don't know how precise it needs to be, but it could be very useful. Okay, so that's one search. So that's basically, you're going to be searching all the things that the library has access to. And in some cases, even things that are at other CSU campuses. If there's a book you really, really need and you don't see it when you search, you could use this and search at the other CSUs and then request it, and it will come here. I would say most of the time, what we have access to is going to be enough. If you're not sure, just ask me. So you can send me an email, or you can hop on the chat, which I'll show you, and a librarian can help you find something that will be similar or comparable, or may help to answer the same kinds of questions. Only when you start to get into really intensive projects, do you have to have the exact book. So don't worry too much about that. The chat is on pretty much 24/7, so you can click this Ask Us button. And basically, it's librarians here at SDSU during the week. We're here from 9 to 7 during the semester. We also have staff and students on here. They're in San Diego and they're here. So if you ask a question that's sort of place-based, like I need to return a book, make sure you let them know that you're an Ivy student so they don't direct you to the book drop in San Diego. But most of the time it won't matter. We can help you start your searching, know where to look, maybe help develop your keywords, help you answer some basic library questions. And after hours, so in the evening, on weekends, we are part of this global consortium of librarians. And there's librarians all over the world, and they're staffing this online chat, and they're trained just like we are. So while they don't have full access to the databases. Like they don't have a sign in. They can access everything else. They can access OneSearch, our website, and they can also kind of talk you through some of those questions that we all have when we're doing research. Like, I'm not finding material. I think I'm using the wrong keywords, all this stuff. So do definitely take advantage of the chat. I will be on chat today from 5 to 7. Just saying. Tuesday afternoon is my shift. Okay, so I'm gonna take a breath for everyone. So talking about information, where it might live, where do I find it? Looking at the university library website, using OneSearch, putting together keywords, using filters. That's where we are so far. Something else I want to point out to you is called a research guide. So back on the homepage, you can see this little button called research guides. And these are like little mini websites that are full of links to resources and sometimes tips about how things work. And they're made by librarians. So there are about 29 librarians at SDSU, and most are what are called subject specialist librarians. So they have, apart from their master's in library science, they usually have an advanced degree in something else like history or English. And so they know their stuff, is what I'm saying. And they create these guides, and I would say college or discipline is the type that you probably want to look at, because you'll get this nice long list of like areas of study. So I think for this class, because you're talking about what is it, problems of economics in Latin America, okay, something like that. I would suggest taking a look at the economics research guide and the Latin American studies research guide. So I'm going to show you both of those. So the economics guide, for instance, this is a little navigation menu. So the country information tab will give you quick links to these databases that we have access to. Some are open access and some are a subscription. So here's Country Watch. And let's say you're looking for something here, public health, and then, I mean, this. Every platform has its own sort of interface, and you just sort of have to hop around till you find the thing you want. Oh, I really need to know what commodities are priced today. Maybe I don't want to know. But yes, very interesting things. And let me go back to where my tab was. Here we go. Okay, back to country info. So that's very useful, or so I say. And then I'm going to go back to the research guide homepage and look for the Latin American Studies guide here. And where the economics guide was broadly economics, the Latin American Studies is now looking at a specific region, but should still have things that could be useful to you in your economics doings. So let's see, let's look at data. And for instance, this is the one I was trying to remember earlier, and I can't. Sepalstat. So that will take you out to this gateway of information, and then you can hop around. So it also exists in English. So instead of trying to do all this Google searching, economic statistics, Latin America, there's a million results, I don't know what to do with it. The idea is that a research guide will kind of give you a shortcut for that. And also that these are resources that we as information professionals have evaluated, have checked to make sure they work most of the time. If they're not working, please tell us, because we need to talk to the vendor and fix it. So the idea is this is reliable information. Okay. feel like I've been talking really fast. Going to check my outline, make sure I'm not skipping over anything too important. I think I've been throwing around this term of databases with the assumption that we know what we're talking about. And probably we do, but I should just say, specifically, these are collections of information, be it data, be it articles, or other published information. And it could be about anything. Sometimes they're focused on a specific region, sometimes focused on a specific topic. But SDSU subscribes to lots and lots and lots of them. So let me show you a list. This is LibGuides is like a librarian term. I feel like we should call them research guides, but whatever. But we have an A to Z database list, which if you remember at the very beginning on the homepage, there was that little tab to look for databases, and we ended up on this page. So it says 596, and that is a combination of subscription databases that we pay for and open access databases. And that's a lot. We don't expect you to just think, oh, I should use this one for my econ project. You can search, and let's say Latin America. So that search term will then bring up any database that is tagged with that keyword. So drama, Redalic, if you're looking for scholarly articles, Eco Americas, this could be very interesting, development in the environment, because we know that has a major intersection with economics, right? Sometimes good, often not. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. So yes, lots of databases. If I did the same search, let me clear that for economics, I would get a different set. And now keep in mind, this list is not the place where you would search for articles. You wouldn't do a search saying Brazil and economy. You would just search Brazil and you would see if there are databases that relate to that. And then you would go into that database. Like let's say, then you'd go into it and do your search there. And the difference between this and OneSearch is you're searching less items. So whereas OneSearch is searching like hundreds of millions of items across 500 databases, all the millions of books that we own, this one is only searching discrete titles about economics and theory. So it's a little more focused. So it can go either way. It really depends on what you're doing. You're fine to use OneSearch. Oftentimes OneSearch will take you into one of these databases because it's connected. So don't worry too much about it. I just want you to know that it exists. Okay, so that was OneSearch, research guides, databases. I'm going to stop and see if people have questions, or Roberto, if there's something you would like me to highlight.
Oh, there was, thank you so much, Mara. If you could just give that hint about the .gov.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Okay, yeah, I'm never sure if people want it or not, but it's so handy. Okay, let me fix I've once again moved my Zoom bar to the wrong place. Okay, so sometimes when you're searching, you're out on the open web, right? You're out here at Google. Nope. See, this is the joy of autocomplete. No, it's so funny. Google doesn't want me to go to Google. I just want to go there. That's fine. So let's say you want a government report. Those are much easier to find online on the open web at the government site than in OneSearch, because with OneSearch, you'll probably get the report or a link to it, but you'll also get what all the other scholars wrote about that report. So that's more to look through. So what you can do, I'm getting to the point, is, let's say you want, what was it? We did unemployment figures. I did this earlier today. No, there we go. So you tell Google the words you want to search, and you have to type this out exactly the way I typed it here, or it doesn't work. You say cite:/.gov. .gov is a domain, just like .com, like .org, and anything that ends in .gov falls under that domain, right? So it's an umbrella. And when you tell Google to do this, it searches for those words, but it takes out all the .com, .org, .edu. So it works, it works both ways. So I do this, and I should only be seeing websites that end in .gov. And here's the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and here's the Department of Labor. And so, these are probably like the best numbers you're going to get. I'm not saying it's the only numbers there are, but these are the numbers that everybody else is going to go by, right? Because it's the government who captures them. So then you're in a good place. It obviously works for other things as well. .org. When you're looking at information like this, I think it's good to stop and say, who are these people? What is this organization? And what are they trying to accomplish? Who is their audience? Because data is just data, but then how it's presented, how it's interpreted can have various meanings, right? Depending on how, what the person who's writing that thinks. It's not neutral. It's not neutral. I'll just stop with that. So just think through where it is you're getting this information. That was a little bit of a digression, but that's it's my information literacy hat that I'm putting on. It works with .edu. I will use .edu often when I have to research a topic. For instance, if I have to teach a class and I may not be an expert in that area, I'll look to see if somebody else created a research guide about that thing. And I think it's always hard to tell from here, but oftentimes you'll find that somewhere out there, some librarian has created a little guide about it. And it's really useful because often there's an introduction about what this thing means, and then links to resources. But I really love that .gov. Just remember, it has to be cite:/.gov, or it just won't work. Yeah, that's a handy. I learned this back in 2008. And it has been one of the most useful things I ever learned. For those of you who are still awake, how are you feeling? Do you have questions? Are you working on a project that you want to try searches for?
Come on, guys. That's the chance.
Yeah. Oh, although that does remind me, you're going to be let off the hook here, everybody, but you can, let's see, you can you can reserve one-on-one research appointments if you need them. So we have our own library website. This just connects to the university library. So you can be on the other site, it's fine. We have our own just because we have a few services that are particular to us. But this is the chat. These are the same research guides I just showed you. This takes you out to the San Diego Library website. But down here, so first of all, here's when we're open. If you want to come see us, I hope you will. And then information about books, reserve a study room. Way down at the bottom is me and our two wonderful staff. We have a third, I'm going to add her. You can email me here if you have a question. You're very welcome to email me. Standard response time is 24 hours. So don't email me at 2 a.m. and expect a response the next day or right then. But you can also book an appointment. And you can let me know if you want to do it in person and Zoom. And I mean, this is like the best part of my job. It's even better when it's in person. But please do take advantage of this because that's what I'm here for. So, yes.
Oh, that's awesome. And you guys, from last week, we had this assignment for February 14th, where you need to make a SWOT analysis from some of the countries you guys chose. So that's a good opportunity to take advantage and see which articles should I use? What are my keywords? And how can I just go through that? What about the data that could somehow underpin my arguments? And that's the day. So
yeah, I mean, SWOT analyses are always exciting. But you know, you have to do some digging in there. You obviously need to choose what country you're looking at, and then what is it? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Exactly.
Okay, so those are the headings, but then you get to decide what each of those, what form they take, right? So I would point you back to that those Latin American studies and economics research guides. And I would maybe start at the Latin American studies one, I think, because why was I thinking that? You may already have ideas, but you know, looking at Country Watch or Cepalstat, sometimes looking at a statistic will make you think, wait, why is that? Why is the percentage of people with advanced degrees that number? What does that mean? And then that kind of informs your thinking. And then you hop on the website, the library website, and you start searching. And what would I search? I think I would say something like country and I don't know, higher education, maybe. Should I do that?
That's a good one.
Okay, let's go. I'm going to say I want articles. What country shall we do?
Colombia.
Colombia, okay. And higher education. So I use the word and. It's a specific operator. The computer knows it's when you tell it that to combine these two terms. And then I put them in quotes because then I'm telling it to search for a phrase. So instead of Colombia and higher and education, it's looking for Colombia and higher education. And I'm just going to leave it like that. Do a search. And I would think spelling would be fine, right? Yes. So it's already got my filter, 3,898. So I would say to myself, okay, what about higher education in Colombia? Rates? Maybe? Don't know. Let's see. That was better. 146 results. This is much more manageable. You could probably drill down farther, but I would start with this and then start skimming, you know, first skimming titles. And then if something looks good, going into the article and looking at the summary. Most articles will have summaries. Every now and again, you find one that doesn't. But you can go into the article, kind of read the introduction, and that should give you an idea. When I'm looking at an article, I often will I'll read the summary, I'll read through the introduction, and I'll often jump to the conclusion, or there's often a portion called discussion. So discussion will usually talk about like, here's all the stuff we found, and here's what we think it means. And then the conclusion, which will usually be like, we need to study this more, or, you know, something like that. So, you know, nobody expects you to like laser focus the first time around on the article, kind of skim through it, get an idea, see if it's useful, find some more, and then you'll go back and read it more carefully. Yeah. You can tell I enjoy talking about this stuff, which is kind of dorky, but yeah, so this is kind of how I would do this. Depends on what you're looking for. And again, we're in OneSearch. I think this kind of search works better in OneSearch than maybe in a database, but in another database, you might want to be more focused. So it just depends.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
I mean, it's amazing the amount of things that we have access to. So if you're an information junkie like me, this is the thing that keeps you going.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And guys, that's the opportunity to get our hands dirty and trickle down the numbers and try to come up with some good hypotheses from those SWOT analysis. For example, we can see that Colombian higher education might be something that you can just explore a little bit more, or something else, for example, as we talk about Bahamas and the tourism and ecotourism and how it could affect the economy in that way in a small island. And so things like that, you can have a bunch of ideas, and these will be underpinned by this type of research and the type of data that you need to just to fall back on and realize that, oh my goodness, this can be very interesting, right? Or could be something that might be for future, for self-interest, in that sense that I want to go to Bahamas, or know a little bit more about the culture, about some aspects of the country, or just for your thesis when you graduate. Since we're talking about 400, and probably can be very inspiring, very inspiring in your thesis.
Yes, for when you all decide to go to grad school.
Exactly.
We did it. Yes, so and on that note about working through your projects, I'm going to say, if you're not sure where to start, do please feel free to ask, because there's it's amazing the kind of information that is gathered and that's out there. And so even if I don't know where it is, I'm happy to try to look for it and help you find it. So, and that's all. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Mara.
You are very welcome. You're going on, right? So I'm okay to just leave. I won't cancel the meeting if I leave.
Oh, no.
Okay.
It's
okay,
good.
Thank you, everyone. Have a very good evening, and I hope I'll see you around the library.
Yeah, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Yes.
Hi guys, hope the session was very informative and helpful for the SWOT analysis that you're gonna get. So here's just a little bit of a reminder what we're gonna do. So let me just grab it very quickly. And first of all, see if you guys can see it. Can you guys see it? Yeah, thumbs up.
Yes, we can see.
Yes.
Yes, good. So here's the case. When you're doing a hypothesis, we first need to know what exactly that hypothesis would be, right? So the main thing is that when you're doing SWOT analysis, you can see that all those quadrants are probably much more useful or much more interesting than the other one. So you might stick to that and make sure that has a very specific question. So probably when you're talking about Colombia higher education, probably there's something positive about it, and say, look, the population is getting more educated, more qualified, and therefore their job market is much more robust than other countries. So that could be a great question. And after that, we can just start filtering all those keywords and say, look, which author has already written about it? And just to make sure, for example, here we can see, current authors in the last 5 years that has written something about, Colombian higher education. That could be, a great time frame. And also, which are, which database, which are the database, available to us, so you can use it, and so you can, take advantage and utilizing in our argument. So if it's regarding with internal, external, and then you can just, jump in and say, look, this is internal because according to the author, his somehow he could he hypothesized about something and it was true, or suggested that this might be a good avenue to pursue, or if it's or something else. And you could actually utilize some of those data that the author used in your analysis, as long as you cite those authors. So that's one thing that we should not forget, that citing the authors that has already written about it. And normally when you're talking about government, usually you expect to have some outlook, some overview about what's going on in that matter, and more specifically to that ministry. And sometimes you can find some interesting things at most of, as Mara said, .gov, and could be very helpful in that sense. And if you want to go to a more specific detail, then you could utilize the one search and look for peer review, articles, for example, and what is related to in terms of sustainability. And of course, with if this bunch of information, you can actually have your own opinion, say, look, whatever the author did, I think this is right, or think this is wrong. Wasn't he didn't have the full information about it, or was missing something. And that's the big thing, and that's what makes the research very interesting, because you can actually pinpoint, the things that was done and things that is still someone's about to do it. And in that sense can be very inspirational. And yeah, and just for you to have an example, I'm gonna show you a couple of slides that I united for you guys. You guys can see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Yes, cool. So here, for example, and when you're talking about political issues, right? So we can see that there's a couple of, experts that were, surveying about, the political issues. So whatever is in the blue area, it means that that specific country is going through, some kind of democracy, and whatever goes into, into the red one is actually a red flag, saying, look, there's something not right here. And that's interesting to see, because you can compare one country to the other and see, wow, what's going on, right? So this is actually from last year, second quarter. But if you look now for that same database as in 2023, you're going to see a couple of changes. which change would that be? For example, if you see Latin America as a whole, has the political assessment, kind of got worse or got better? What do you guys think? Come on, come on. Straight up.
It's gotten worse.
Yeah, unfortunately. But of course, this is according to to some of the experts, but probably, as we see last week, maybe 2024 is going to be the inflection point that things will get better. But here, for example, when you're talking about growth, talking about GDP, the wealth of a nation, we can see that one country is actually outperforming some others, and that would be Colombia. That's interesting because you just researched about the higher education. So this could be interesting for your research. At the same time, we could compare with some other countries like Argentina, Peru, Mexico, or Chile, and you can see how they are doing. In that matter, Brazil is doing pretty bad, but Mexico is doing much better. Argentina right now is actually at the bottom again because of some economic issues. But you see, you can just choose a time frame and start comparing all those facts. And this is, for example, from The Economist, which is that we have access from the library. So the library has all the data and all the articles that The Economist has written the last few decades, so to speak, which is a great advantage. Another thing that I want to show you, it's about the currencies. We talk about, the Argentina pesos and the Colombia pesos. And here we can compare them according to the dollar, or just saying, look, if everyone starts at 100, how far from 100 are those currencies are? Meaning, are they really devaluated or valuated a lot? So that's one thing to balance out. And for example, from that chart, you can see that the Brazilian real is actually highly devaluated, which means that, $1 buys a lot of Brazilian reais. So again, if you go to Brazil, it's going to be very cheap to make a tourism or just to buy stuff. So that's why you can take advantage of it. And for example, when you were talking about the Chilean peso, maybe not as much as a good deal as in Brazil, but still it could be very cheap compared to the dollar. Another things that we can talk about is, with regards to the war, and you see the commodity price, you can see right after the Ukrainian war started, the world experiencing, a huge growth in terms of commodity price. So it kind of put a lot of pressure in oil, in gas, all the utilities they normally use it, and that somehow would reflect in inflation in those countries. As you may know, some of those commodities are actually produced, extracted in Latin America. For example, what is the most common commodity that is produced in Chile? You guys know it? Come on, have a quick look at Google. It's very close to Atacama. Which commodity is Chile exports a lot? Which one? Come on.
Is it wine? Is it wine?
Almost. Actually, it's copper, which is interesting. because they kind of provide copper for almost for the whole world. They specialize. They actually specialize in the extraction of copper. And for example, in other Bolivia, they also have copper, but not as much as in Chile. So it's interesting to see all those comparisons. And in Brazil, for example, we're big in soy grains and soy oil that is mostly purchased by China. And that's one thing. They're kind of what do you call it? They're market driven. So whatever is whichever country is offering a better price, they go there and buy it. So China can be a real, they can shift gears in terms of commodity prices, even in Latin America, which is interesting. So when you put all those countries all together in terms of, economic sectors, you can see some interesting things. For example, in Colombia, 55% of the sector is actually primary products and manufacturing. So it's interesting to see how they play out in different countries. In Chile, for example, we have resource-based manufacturers, as well as in Peru. So they're almost half of the economy. And if you start, digging for some more information, you can see some interesting results. We expect Brazil to be a little bit more primary products dependent, and which we are, but also we have a big manufacturer, big fabrics and companies and manufacturer exports, but also with a little bit of resource-based manufacturers, which is interesting because, when you're talking about resource-based, we're talking about energy, we're talking about water, we're talking about all types of, things that we use in our daily basis. And with this type of chart, we can just compare each other and say, oh, what could be interesting or not. And of course, this actually has a reflection, has a consequence. And when you see those imbalances in prices, it kind of fits back the inflation. So here, until the mid-2022, we have a higher inflation in Brazil. But right now, actually, the first one is Argentina, because they are dealing with some, let's say, challenging macroeconomic policies at the moment, at the point that one month inflation is reaching 90% of, in a monthly basis, so to speak, which is a lot. And also one thing that kind of, that you have to deal with, and because it's about credit. So whatever the central bank decides to increase interest rate or decrease, is going to impact our pocket. So in that sense, that the highest interest rate in Latin America is actually in Brazil. So right now we are around 13 and 3.25% interest rate, which is quite a lot if you compare, for example, a couple of years ago, which reached 2%. Or even if you compare with other countries like Chile, which is 9%, or even Peru, which is 5.5%, there's a lot of, discrepancy here. And this could somehow affect the well-being of the population, right? Because credit get more expensive, and so are the installments to buy houses, or for the real estate market, it could have a big impact. And of course, if you're talking about interest rate, it doesn't mean that the government is actually can just wash their hands and say, look, that doesn't affect me. But much on the other hand, it does affect all the government debts, because it gets much more expensive. And for example, the highest debt right now is in Argentina and Brazil, and the lowest is Chile and Peru. So it seems like Chile and Peru is actually controlling a little bit better the economy. But we know for a fact that last year in December, Peru had a bit of a hiccup there, and there's a political problem. There was a bit of, there was a cup, and kind of threw the macroeconomic stability a little bit off. But at the moment, they're trying to deal with that, and at some point they're going to stabilize again, and so the economy could, catch up and pick it up, and the velocity that was seen before. And for example, when you're talking, also one thing that is interesting to see is, look, what happens if a country is so close or so open to the world in terms of globalization? We can see that, the free market is more related, to some developed countries, and you're talking about a little bit of difficulties in getting to one specific country, and it could be more challenging when you're talking about non-democracy. And in that sense, we are talking about a couple of countries like Cuba, like North Korea, or even Venezuela. And there's a bit of a debate here. And right now they're kind of, discussing, is this protectionism good for the world economy as a whole, or is actually creating much more inequalities or much more poverty in those countries? And that's something that most of the economic thinkers are, trying to deep dive and have a reasonable solution about it. So by the end of the day, whatever they need to do it requires, study. It requires understanding of the situation so that they could, just stabilize and balance out all the variables. I know it's a lot of things, and for that, and for some countries that cannot deal with that in a very efficient way, they should rely on the World Bank and the IMF sometimes. So that's one thing that you're gonna see in the next class, and you're gonna pick it up from there. Guys, do you have any doubts up until now?
No, nothing yet.
Anything you want to highlight? And please feel free. And do not hesitate if in the meantime you have any doubts, and you can just send me an email, and I try to answer as fast as I can, and try to solve this issue. So it's an open door, so feel free. All right, so this class, I'm gonna upload the video into our Canvas so that it can make available for you if you have any doubts in finalizing the essay. Also, next week, fortunately, this class is gonna be in person, and hopefully I can see you guys again. And again, if you have any doubts, just shoot me an email or any questions or anything. So that's it for now. That's it for today, and wish you a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Have a good week.
You too. Thank you.